So we're opening up tonight. Hopefully you guys got a chance to print out your notes. Did you get notes, Sharon?
Yeah, I just.
Okay.
I will review.
And we are continuing our series in Proverbs, and we're picking up tonight in the topic is business. So the opening verse for that's found in chapter 11, verse 1. And it says this: a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. And so we're looking at business for our topic, just introducing it. Here in your notes, honesty in little things is not a little thing. So, question: why is the principle of honesty not changed, whether dealing with large or small amounts?
Citizen.
Yeah.
Well, anything that you do, start small, and especially sin, and then it just grows from there. And so you see that if you are dishonest with a small thing, it's the devil's got a foot in the door, and from there it just increases, and gets worse. And so the idea is, don't even go there. Don't turn the corner. Stay away.
But it's often an area that we justify the small things. I was reminded as I was reading this, thinking about how we even the same idea, we say, oh, it's just a little white lie, and we want to make it okay. We want to justify ourselves, and I think that same thing goes here. If it's a little thing, maybe that's not a big deal, but when it comes down to it, the principle is the same, whether it's small or big. Honesty is the same in principle. So, anyways, yeah, and
it kind of reminds me of I can't remember exactly how it goes, but he who is, it has to do with that one of the parables, and it was like he who was trusted, or who is honest with a little, will be given much in the kingdom. And so that idea that you need to be honest with the little bit that you're given, and then you may be given things that are larger and larger.
That's good. The second question, it says, can one prosper in the business world by standing with right principles? And why or why not? That question.
I think it's your reputation. I think you would gain business and trust with people over time, and they would know you're an honest merchant or whatnot, and they're going to seek you.
Yeah. And want to do business with you.
Yeah. No, I've had, just personally with my business, anything I've done, when I was doing just the odd jobs up here, I didn't do contracts or estimates. Okay, they want 100 trees pruned, I charge per hour. Okay, I can give them a general idea, but the thing is, I had the reputation, and so people had no problem with that. I never lacked for work. They knew that I was honest, and so it was like a blank check, but they could trust. But I think ultimately, Proverbs, of course, is God's instruction for us in this world. A lot of the scripture talks about our eternal life, but we're stuck here for a while. And so he's telling us how to conduct ourselves. And if you're faithful to make the effort to obey God and to do as He would have you do, you're not going to fail. He'll take care of you.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the quotes, some say you cannot exist in the dog eat dog business world without pulling some shady deals. If that is true, it is better not to succeed. But I don't know if you guys have heard that dog eat dog world. One of the things, you know, I've noticed just being in business here, it definitely is different in our rural community, where, you know, just that your reputation and the way you do business is going to be known quickly, you know, versus the big city. And the big city, that statement, dog eat dog, may be more true, but it doesn't justify it either. But it seems like you get down in the big city, you see more of that, where it's just that, they call it the rat race or dog eat dog. But honesty in business, where dishonesty gets you. And we'll share some verses. We got a lot of verses to cover tonight, as normal. So, Scott, if I could pick on you first, this one's just in Proverbs 11:3.
Okay, which Scott?
Yep, that's a good question. Scott Davidson.
Okay, so you want Proverbs 11:3.
Yep. And when you get it, just pause for a minute. We're going to pass out some verses here.
Oh, okay. All right.
Everybody else is good with reading a verse? It won't be just probably one verse. So, Gladys, if you would like to do Proverbs 21:6, and then Scott 28:8. Sharon, if you would do Proverbs 20:17. And then Megan, if you do Proverbs 10:9, and I'll do 15:27. All right, so go ahead, Scott. You do the first one, Proverbs 11:3.
Okay, Proverbs 11:3. The integrity of the upright will guide them, but the crookedness of the treacherous will destroy them.
And then Gladys, if you would do 21.
6,
Yeah, 21:6.
verse 6. 21, verse 6.
The accusation of treasures by a lying tongue is a fleeting vapor. The pursuit of death.
Okay.
And then, 28:8.
He who increases his wealth by interest and usury gathers it for him who is gracious to the poor.
Okay.
And 2017 is bread gained by deceit is sweet to a man, but afterward his mouth will be filled with gravel.
10 verse 9.
Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but he who makes his ways crooked will be found out.
All right. And then Proverbs 15:27 says, whoever is greedy for unjust gain troubles his own household, but he who hates bribes will live. So our question, just in following up that section, it says, dishonesty nets a profit, but what else does it bring? And again, we looked at some of those, but maybe something in one of those verses stood out to you. Again, some of those headings also give it away a little bit, but what does dishonesty gain you?
Death.
Death.
Was
What's that? Troubles.
was
Troubles.
And eventually somebody else gets your money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's like short-term gain versus long-term gain. So dishonesty can get you a short-term gain, but in the long run, you're not going to be happy with the results.
Right.
Of course, it doesn't always seem to happen that way, but you figure most of the Proverbs address what usually happens in this world. And of course, there are exceptions, but even with the exceptions of what happens when you see somebody who is dishonest and wicked and evil, and they prosper even to the day that they die, they're doing fine. But for your eternal life, it's disastrous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But most of the time it goes according to what they say. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
There's nothing in this world worth losing your eternal, life with Jesus in heaven.
Yeah. What will a man give?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
The entire world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're thinking
Save the
eternity,
soul.
not just a lousy, what, if you're lucky, 80 to 100 years.
Well, also, if you are dishonest in your business, you're often dishonest in your other parts of your life, and those are often the ones that come back to get you.
Yeah, and I just looking at this section, and I had read that in Proverbs 15:27, but I think Scott, just following up on what you're saying, dishonesty ultimately leads to, it says, unjust gain troubles his own household. So to be dishonest or live that lifestyle, at some point you're bringing that home and bringing that grief on your loved ones, and whether they wanted to be a part or not, now they're in the middle of it. So,
But then also what happens to your employees if you have employees?
Yeah.
You're dishonest, chances are pretty good they're going to follow.
right.
And cheat you too.
Or they're gonna lose their jobs if you get, shut down by, let's say, the IRS or something.
But what I'm saying is, yeah, your dishonesty will attract other dishonest people
Yeah.
to your business. Yeah.
And God is not going to be with you. You'll be alone if you are a Christian.
Right.
Because our ways here is not the way of the world. We are different.
We are different. Yeah.
I was thinking this is one of the major problems that we have in our country nowadays, and maybe it's always been this way, and we just think of like Leave It to Beaver and everybody was honest, but it seems like everybody is doing whatever they can to get the most they can out of the business, and so they don't care about their employees. So the obvious reaction is the employees don't care about the business owners. And so business owners are always complaining they can't find good employees. Employees are always complaining they can't find a good job. Neither one is doing what they're supposed to be doing to the other one, and everybody's unhappy. Whereas it seems like in the past, business owners wanted to keep their employees for long term, and so they were honest with them and they did the best they could for their employees while still getting a profit. And we're finding like Google, you know, it's not perfect, but Google is really trying to do that, and they keep their employees for a long time.
No, it has changed, you know, because from the time I was very young, I could see it. And in the past, yes, it was very common for somebody to be employed for life for the same company. And the company did go out of their way to take care of them. And even if they got old and retired and they still had problems, or as they were getting to retirement, they would adjust their workload, their schedule, and everything else to accommodate them so that they could make retirement and get their full pension. And it was, so there was loyalty, there was company loyalty, both to the employee and the employee. Yeah, I know I've seen it change over the years.
Yeah.
So it was different 50, 60 years ago, 100 years ago.
The same as success. Success is defined differently. People idolize these rich millionaires, like the one who owns Facebook and stuff, but I'm like, I feel sorry for that man. He's gonna stand in front of a holy God someday. I mean, anybody, I'm just not pointing out him, but I'm saying these ones that everyone idolizes because they're so wealthy or they're so successful. They might be successful in man's eyes, but in God's eyes, oh, I feel sorry for them.
Right.
You just have to pray for them.
All right, next part of that section, honesty on both sides of the counter. And so we've got a few verses again. So with the Davidson family, do we have anybody else that would like to read on your end, Scott, with Joseph or Michelle? Proverbs 16:11.
Joseph can read that one. Yeah, let me get that for him.
Okay. And then Gladys, can you do chapter 20, verse 10? Or actually, if you want to do chapter 11, verse 1, I'm sorry. And then Scott, we'll give you 20 and 10 and 23 go together if you want to cover both of those.
Chapter
11:10.
11:1.
11:1.
Okay.
You are 20 verse
10
10
and 23. Yeah.
Okay, 10 and 23.
All right. Davidson family, Joseph.
A just balance and scales belongs to the Lord. All weights of the bag are his concern.
Did you get that?
Yep. Thank you, Joseph.
A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight.
Differing weights and differing measures, both of them are abominable to the Lord. Differing weights are an abomination to the Lord, and a false scale is not good.
All right. And then 2014 says, bad, says the buyer, but when he goes away, then he boasts. So the first portion of those verses had to do with the seller, and then the verse that I just read had to do with the buyer. So does God expect more honesty from the seller or buyer?
It's equal. There should be.
Yeah, sellers make mistakes sometimes. And if it's to your advantage, you should still point it out to them
Sure.
and make things right.
Yeah.
I'd say both, but I mean, they seem to be focused on the seller because he or she has the most opportunity to cheat someone.
And probably the reason why we have a few more verses there in Proverbs dealing with the seller and how he should behave.
Okay, just some interesting things here, because one of the things that happens in Kenya is basically the Muslims are very, very careful to make sure their balances, and they still use, because we have the marketplaces and that. You don't see it here so much. I mean, yeah, you weigh your bananas on an electronic scale, but no, they have their little bean balances where they weigh out the stuff that you buy, whether it be spices, meat, or garlic, or whatever. And you find the Muslims are very, very careful to be honest and have just balances. And of course, part of it is because their religion has a lot of works-based stuff. And it's the Christians who end up cheating on that a lot. But there we still have the old biblical balances, just like it talks about here, and the weights. They have all their little weights, you know, that they use to put on the one side of the pan.
Right.
And then the other thing is her favorite verse here. One of them is that bad, says the buyer. But when he goes his way, then he boasts.
Right.
Because bargaining is just still done there. That's what you do.
Right.
And that's just part of the game. You know, you say, what, are you trying to sell this piece of junk to me? No, man, that tomato is rotten. You know, you can't charge that price for that, you know? And anyway, so the two work to finally come out and agree on a price. But for the most part, you're not cheating the seller. And the seller's not cheating you, because if he tries to cheat you, you just don't buy, you go to another person.
Yeah.
And likewise, if you don't want to give him what he needs, then he refuses to sell to you. But still, that's all part of it. You feel really good. Oh man, I got a really good deal. Yeah, so you boast about it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we laugh on that one.
Yeah.
Is
So
that
it's-
wrong though? So I mean, Dave loves going to like the swap meets, and
I
he'll
was
wait
gonna
to the
say.
very last day, you know, and then offer somebody like a lower price, you know, like, oh, you know, something we've been looking at. I wonder if that's really wrong. I never really thought of it that way. I mean, we're not stealing from him because he could say no,
Right.
and we're trying to buy his merchandise before he leaves, but
I
maybe that's
wonder.
not really a great practice.
I wonder if it comes down to like the setting, because you know, at a swap meet or a yard sale, you almost expect some bargaining.
Yeah.
But a lot of times our stores here, they're not set up for bargaining. You
Oh,
go
well,
in there and
that's different. Yeah.
and there's
go
a-
to Walmart and try to talk him down.
yeah, there's a price, and you pay that price.
So
So
now if you've coerced a guy into finally lowering it just because you're badgering, he just wants to get rid of you, well, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah, well, you have to be careful in those situations, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
anything, you guys have any remarks on that? Can you guys hear us talking, Davidson family?
Yeah, we can hear you talking, and those were good comments too. I was going to say, kind of in the same way though, you would get known in this town if you tried to pull that once or twice at different stores. Everybody talks to everybody, and pretty soon you'd be known, and they wouldn't buy it anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is off topic a little bit, but I just didn't want to skip over in chapter 11, verse 1, when it says that the just weight is the Lord's delight. I like thinking of that even though maybe sometimes in business it's hard to be honest, because maybe you couldn't make as much as you could if you were dishonest. It's to think about the Lord delighting over your righteousness, doing the right thing. It's cool to think about.
Well, see, another aspect of it too, you don't get it here so much, but sometimes. But there with the bargaining and that, I don't bargain as aggressively as I could because I've got the money,
Right.
you know, and the guy's trying to, you know, many of them, especially businesses that are starting or they're not that affluent, they don't have that much. So it's like, yeah, give them a break. You know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Our next section, talking about gifts and bribes. So we have a few verses again. Sharon, if you would do Proverbs 15:27, and Megan, if you do 17:23.
Okay, 15:27. He who is greedy for gain troubles his own house, but he who hates bribes will live.
Chapter 17, verse 23. The wicked accepts a bribe in secret to pervert the ways of justice.
All right. In Proverbs 17:8, a bribe is like a magic stone in the eyes of the one who gives it. Wherever he turns, he prospers. So, just a couple points there of what we may find. Says wins friends and influence, paves way to social advancements, helps a person get out of a difficult situation. So our question in this section, it says the wise man appears somewhat ambiguous concerning his instructions on gifts and bribes. Can you explain his position on the subject?
Well, sometimes it used to be a regular standard course of business. I'm in the medical field, and I worked for an air ambulance company years ago, and the owner would always go to the hospitals and give the nurses fruit baskets, seized candy, all that. But they knew when there was an emergency, call critical error. Of course, now they've come out with the anti-kickback law. So, now they're a lot looking at that kind of stuff. But I mean, it was kind of like generosity, making the nurses' days nicer, made it happy. But in a way, he was kind of bribing their business. Sure. Kind of in a way. Sure. He was offering a good service. It wasn't like he was cheating. So it's another fine line kind of thing.
Right.
I think what you find, the majority of verses point out that bribing is no good. But you still have the reality of how things work in the world. And the one verse talked about that wherever he turns, he prospers. That's explaining how it does and can work. That's not condoning the practice. It's just explaining the reality. And so it's already established so many times that, no, you shouldn't do this. But the temptation is because guess what? It works.
Right.
And again, in Kenya, it's still, in Africa in general, exists on every level, from the local traffic police all the way up. Bribing is just a way of life there. And as a Christian, it can be difficult, to not do it. And so got lots of stories. And so it's one of those things that it's a big temptation. And the thing is, if you go ahead and give the bribe, all the problems go away, or you give the bribe and son of a gun, your paperwork's done instantly. That file they lost reappears, And so I think the verse that says wherever he turns, he prospers, kind of addresses that. It's like, boy, the temptation's there, but watch out.
I will get fed.
Yeah.
I guess.
Nice, better
And I
favor from God.
Yeah.
Rather than people.
Right. Yeah.
And an interesting deal on that, what's happened, their government is trying to crack down on it. And they've made some changes that makes it much more difficult. So now what happens is you get the same treatment. Okay, the policeman, oh man, your car's terrible, it needs a paint job and it's in violation of this and this and this on the vehicle code. So he hops in and you go to the police station and they impound the car. So he's sitting there for a couple hours, call Gladys, say, well, yeah, I'm here at the police station. I could be here for a while. The police lady laughs, it's like, but remain cool. Well, after 2 or 3 hours of we're going to have the inspector come, but he never shows up, and then you're going to go to court and blah, blah. Let's go out to the parking lot to the car. So the policeman takes me out to the car. And then he looks at me and says, you're free to go. Because he couldn't get anything from me. Okay? But he doesn't. And so now after the fact, okay, well, I'm free to go. Yeah, okay. As I'm getting ready to leave, okay, here, I give him a little bit, but now it's not a bribe. It's just simply a gift after the fact.
Yes.
And some other things, if they can expedite things or whatever, it's now like, well, no. When I have whatever it is in hand, okay, The guy that's been against us has gone to prison. He's been released. And now he's demolished his house like he was supposed to on our property and moved. Well, okay, so we thank the police officer. Give him a little something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and so it's kind of like, okay, where are you on that? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's a tough one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think that's what it's asking here, just kind of that fine line. I mean, bribery is obviously condemned, but we see gifts can be advantageous, but just maybe the motive behind the gifts.
It sounds almost like tipping your waitress. You know, when they do a good job, you tip them.
I don't remember you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think coercion is a big part of it, you know? Yeah. Because a lot of bribes are extortion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, last part of this section, it says, moving up in the business world. What will help you move up in the business world? And we have a few verses we'll look at. Proverbs, Gladys, can you do 18:16? And then Scott 10:9. And then Sharon 22:29.
18:16. A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men.
He who walks in integrity walks securely, but he who perverts his ways will be found out.
29. You see a man who excels in his work, he will stand before kings. He will not stand before unknown men.
All right. Yeah, and I think those verses are good and kind of answering that question too. What will help us move up in the business world? So those are some good verses for reference, but just our gifts bring us before our giftedness bring us before great men. So reading yours, integrity, and integrity there was security. So, and then competency. What did we find in yours? I think it was kind of the same. That you'd be
You're gonna
recognized.
answer to God, not men.
Yeah, do you see a man skilled at his work?
Right.
Yeah, he will stand before kings, not before obscure men. Yeah.
He'd be recognized. Yeah.
Everything you should do, it should be for the glory of God. Even if you're in a job you don't like, doesn't mean you get out early or do a half job. You still do it 100% because you're doing it for the glory of God. You know, and go find another job or something. You know, but you still do your best ability.
All right. Any final thoughts on that section dealing with business? Okay. Did you get the next section on good name? That was the next on your emails.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I
probably did. All right. So we'll look at that in Proverbs 22 verse 1. And really kind of ties in with our section tonight anyways, talking about a good name. It says a good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, loving favor rather than silver or gold. So why is a good name better than riches? If you could have one or the other, why would a good name be desired over riches?
Because you're going to be respected.
Yes.
Riches are fleeting. You can be rich one day and stock market crash and your name you have forever.
Right.
At least when you're here on this earth.
You know where Sawyer's camping?
What do you say?
Michelle said, you get, when you have a good name, then people just know you and they trust you. And so there you can, through that, you can get riches sometimes.
Yep.
Or if you're in trouble, somebody will help you.
Yeah.
They'll be glad to.
Right.
A rich man who's hated. Yeah.
No one showed up at his funeral.
What we say let himself, he's paying what he planted. He's reaping, so he don't cry.
Yep.
Besides, for most people, how do you want to be remembered? Most people are really concerned about how they'll be remembered.
Well, continuing on that thought, Megan, will you read Proverbs 12:3?
No one is established by wickedness, but the root of righteous will never be moved.
Okay, so a good name, the importance. So why is a good name important for a Christian?
So people will listen to us and we can share the gospel.
Well, you want to be a good witness to the Lord. Yeah.
Because we are not going to be removed or removed.
Right. Solid.
Yeah.
Yep. In a good name, you'll be established, and people will look to you. If you're an established person, you're someone that people can depend on. So.
And the way you behave is kind of puts a light on the Lord, because people know you're a Christian. If they think you're a hypocrite, then they're like, well, then God must be a hypocrite too.
Yep.
It's good. All right, we got some other verses here. The Davidson family, Scott or Joseph, we got Proverbs 27, verses 2 and 21. And then Gladys, if you'd like to do Proverbs 3 through 4. And then Scott, Proverbs 11:20. Sharon, if you'd like to do 12:8. And then you can do 10:7.
So you will find favor and good repute in the sight of God and man.
Okay.
The perverse in heart are an abomination to the Lord, but the blameless in their walk are his delight.
A man will be condemned according to his wisdom, but he who is of a perverse heart will be despised. Oh, commended, sorry. Screw that. A man will be commended. That doesn't make sense.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Right. Chapter 10, verse 7. The memory of the righteous is a blessing, but the name of the wicked will rot.
Okay. And then did you guys have 27?
Okay, you are okay. I was wondering if somebody had already read it or not. I was confused. Okay, so 27, 2. Joseph, you're going to read that one.
Let another praise you, and not of your own mouth, a stranger, and not your own lips.
Okay, and then 27:21. The crucible is for silver, and the furnace for gold, and each is tested by the praise accorded him.
Okay. And then I have Proverbs 27, chapter 20, verse 7. It says, the righteous who walks in his integrity, blessed are his children after him. So just, again, a couple things that go along with that good name. Scott, Davidson, and Joseph, you guys read what or how a good name comes from others. What does that look like?
Well, Joseph said, don't praise yourself. Let other people say good things about you.
Right. Yep. And I think, I think that's it. You know, if there's, the established, that we've established a good name for ourselves, then others will speak up, for us, and that praise will come from others, because they will begin to recognize, like the root of the righteous will be established. They'll be recognized. There'll be a light, a witness, a city set on a hill. We read about honor. Gladys, you read about honor in chapter 3 there. And then Scott, you had something. It says in 11:20, what was that? From God. That are
The perverse in heart are an abomination to the Lord, but the blameless in their walk are his delight. So the Lord delights in those who are blameless, free of guilt,
right.
from doing these perverse things. Yeah. I think you find in this day of age, people are encouraged and expected to promote themselves big time. You know, and I saw it happening in the military, you know, your performance reports and everything, you know, and even the interviews. It's like, but if you truly have a good name, you don't have to say anything. People will see it and recognize it. And even in Kenya, I came across the deal where these guys declare themselves an apostle or a prophet. And, you know, my answer with that was no. If a guy's truly a prophet, he doesn't have to say a thing. You'll know it. If a guy's really an apostle, in the sense that we're using it, he doesn't have to proclaim that he is. Whatever somebody, you'll know it. Okay? And so somebody who truly has a good name, it's something that's earned with respect and whatever in time. People will recognize it and begin to talk about it. You know, you don't have to say a thing if you truly have a good name. But this idea of self-promotion, it's like, and you're cautioned against it. Yeah. That's why I said, let another praise you, not your own lips. No,
Yeah.
Be quiet.
And
Be humble.
and I think that starts at a young age. And Scott Davidson, you probably see that. You know, I think about schools and just your peers and peer pressure. You know, you're pushed to prove yourself. You're pushed to make a name for yourself, and it's not always in a good light. So I mean that seems to start early on. Our reputation. But how do we achieve a good reputation and integrity? What is integrity and why is it important?
I was going to say, having to do with the kids and stuff, I've had a number of them, not a lot, but a number of them that I would say they didn't have to toot their own horn at all. They were like, for instance, they were a great baseball player. They had top level grades. They were always nice to everybody. And everybody knew it. You know, they didn't have to say a thing about it. And nobody ever questioned it. And they were somewhat popular, but they never belittled other people to increase their popularity. And I think I see that actually as rare nowadays.
Yep.
Integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's watching.
And you can't do all that if you don't know God.
Ultimately, it comes from the heart.
Yeah.
It's something you can't fake because it's sooner or later
Right.
you stumble in a crashes.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah.
It is God leading you.
You have to follow the Lord. Yeah. Otherwise, you can't do it.
But you are alone. Can't be good.
All right. Well, a few things just to wrap up this section, and we'll read a few more verses together. So honesty. Let's share a few verses there. Saying, Gladys, would you do 12:20, and Scott 13:5, and Sharon 17:20?
Deceit is in the heart of those who devise evil, but counselors of peace have joy.
A righteous man hates falsehood, but a wicked man acts disgustingly and shamefully.
He who has a deceitful heart finds no good, and he who has a perverse tongue falls into evil.
All right. So honesty. Couple verses there for us. And then the next part, diligently seek God. And again, looking at some things of how to achieve a good reputation. So these are some of those things that will help in that. So honesty, diligently seeking God, our next part. Megan, will you read 11:27?
Whoever diligently seeks good seeks favor, but evil comes to him who searches for it.
Right. And Proverbs 21:21 says, whoever pursues righteousness and kindness will find life, righteousness, and honor. And then righteous deeds is the last verse we'll look at. And Scott Davidson, will you read Proverbs 20:11?
Sure. Proverbs 20:11. It is by his deeds that a lad distinguishes himself, if his conduct is pure and right.
All right. All right. And again, how to achieve a good reputation through integrity, and that looks at honesty, diligently seeking God, and righteous deeds are our actions, and our actions show who we are. So any final thoughts on that section? A good name? All right. So we got some good things to take away from this evening in both our business dealings and our reputation. So we'll close out, and Scott Davidson, you just close us out in a short prayer this evening.
Sure, I can do that. All right, dear Lord, just thank you for this time that we have had to spend together in your word, and just ask that you would please lead us and guide us, and just fill us and help us to make wise decisions, Lord, righteous decisions, and help us when we come to those decision points in our lives where we are tempted to do the more profitable thing, or take the easier way, or just ask that you would please direct us to the right path, that we would follow you, and that we would shine your light to those around us through the way that we behave and the way that we do business. And so we just ask your blessing upon everyone who's here, and even those who cannot be here, and that you would just bless and keep us this day and on into this week. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, guys. Good night to you all.
All right. Good night.
Good night, Joseph and Michelle.